Hello everybody and welcome back to another portion of our Tekno EB48 2.2 build. This time we are going to go ahead and work on bag G, which is going to be our base front end assembly. So that's going to be our front arms you can see there. It's going to be our A and B block, and it's going to be our sway bar stuff. So as per usual, we'll start out the video with just going through and getting everything off of its parts trees, like our arms here, and then just making sure that there is no flashing, and then also going ahead and just getting all of our bags organized. So we'll go ahead and speed up this footage here because you've seen me organize about a bazillion things now, and then we will get into that front end assembly build. All right, so now that we are set to go with everything out in front of us, the first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is go ahead and get our front A and B block pills. So it'll be 4 pills we cut off here, 2 for the front and 2 for the back. So we'll get those guys set down in front of us, and I believe they're going to be center dots front and back from the factory. So we'll go ahead, get those pushed into our, I believe that's gonna be our A block there. You can identify that because it's got the 1 single hole and then the 2 holes that will sit between the chassis and the dip case on the very front. And then of course we have our B block pills going in. So now we are going to start our sway bar assembly end of things. So we're gonna go ahead and start with sliding that through the gearbox there. Use our little discs, our spacer settings for our front bar. I guess you could also call them kind of bushings because they do have the sway bar riding on them. So we'll get both sides of those put on. Very simple there, just a simple matter of sliding the hole over the sway bar, pushing them into place. Now we can go ahead, get the collars that are actually going to hold the sway bar centered. We'll get the set screw put into the plastic part there. If you're using the metal one, it'll be a little bit easier to get it all threaded in. But with the plastic one, I'll go ahead, get the thread started off of it. That way I can make sure that the screw actually goes in straight. Don't want to have that go in crooked. Not because it's necessarily going to hurt something one way or the other, but it just looks a lot nicer when everything is centered up and squared away. So as you're putting your first one in, all you're doing is just getting a kind of baseline of where the centering is. Then you can go ahead and get your second one started. We'll get that screw put in. Then after you get this second one slid on, then you can kind of do a final double check, make sure everything is nice and centered. So we'll go ahead, get that set on there, get it tightened down. The other thing you can do in this is just make sure that the sway bar can move totally freely. You don't want to have any issues of the sway bar binding up on that gearbox. And then all I'm doing here is just making sure that everything is centered up, and of course, like I just said, not binding at all. So just a little bit of a patient process to get it just right. That way everything, like I said in every other video, flows well on the track. You don't have any issues at all, and you don't have to go back and fix things straight after your first run while you're trying to break it in. So got the sway bar almost set there. Just making sure that it is nice and free now. It's all centered up, but we're just gonna pull the collars a little bit away, open up that space a little bit so it's not pinching it quite as much. As you tighten it down, you'll notice that the kind of centering pieces are going to become crooked a little bit. It's just the nature of, as you're turning the screw, it's gonna go crooked in whatever direction the screw is tightening. So bear with that a little bit. You can kind of use your fingers to hold it into place, but sometimes it'll still want to make itself go off just a little bit. So you can see there, now we have finished up. Sway bar rotates freely all the way around, has some nice loop-de-doopties there, and we can go ahead and continue with our assembly. That is probably gonna be the most tedious part of this kind of initial bag here, this bag G for our initial front end assembly. Everything else is just a matter of just kind of sitting it into place. You'll have to do, I guess, potentially a little bit of tedious work with these end links, but it's as simple as just setting them right on the very end, making sure they're nice and flush with the sway bar itself. So you can see we have our offset one on top, and then we just have the round ball on the bottom. We'll go ahead and we will match that onto our other side, get that small ball in, and then the large ball, of course, on top for the offset. We'll go ahead, set our screw in just a little bit, Don't go ahead and tighten this all the way, because obviously this is what is going to hold our sway bar in place. So all you're going to do is put the sway bar flush with the end link, and then you go ahead and tighten that down. This is a piece that, if you would like to, you can put a teeny bit of thread lock on it. I don't usually put thread lock on it, and I've never had any problem. But if you want to just play it safe, then this is definitely something you can do. Go ahead, get the other set screw onto our end link, just like we did the first time. This is exactly just a mirror process. Get that slid on to our sway bar and get it nice and tight. And then once that is nice and tight and flush, you can go ahead, get your droop screws in the actual arms themselves. And you can see there what happened was the camera decided that it was gonna run out of space and stop recording and not give me the heads up. So had to do a slight video cut, but we are back very quickly. Get the droop screws set in. What I was showing at the very front of the clip there was just the fact that the droop screw is gonna have two different screw heads on it. It'll have a lower and an upper. The bottom one will be a 2.5, the top one will be your 2.0. That way, of course, when everything is mounted, you have something to be able to adjust your droop with. So definitely make sure you identify those screws. Then we can go ahead and get our B block mounted on. And we can go ahead and now grab our arms. There's gonna be a couple things to do here. You can see some of the sleeves there that are gonna sit inside the arm. That, of course, makes it to where you don't have to do any arm reaming at all. It's always the same every single time, and the metal on metal does flow very free. You don't have to worry about binding at all. So we'll go ahead, get those arms set into our B block, swap our end links back, and then we can go ahead, get our A block set into place. Grab our screw for the front, and you're going to see that I'm gonna make a mistake here. I'm gonna start putting it in, very quickly catch myself. You do need to make sure that you put the bumper on with this, or else that screw is going to drive itself into the gearbox. It's not going to cause any problems at all, but that shim on the bottom of it with those little teeny 1.5 screws on it, the front hole will basically explode on itself. And that's not the most ideal, but it's not going to hurt anything long-term necessarily. Once you have that front bumper mounted on with that screw, you go ahead and get your end links set into the actual arms themselves. That'll be your, of course, last two screws of this bag. Get those lower flat balls set in, push the screw in, and then we can go ahead and get everything nice and tight. And that is going to conclude our bag G. We'll see you in the next one.